She slid a 10 from her apron, bought a stranger a hot meal, and lost her job in front of 24 people who pretended not to see it happen. No one expected who'd walk through that door minutes later. No one expected silence to fall like that. Riverside Café didn't warm up, it detonated. By 11 a.m. the place was already shaking. The bell over the door chimed like a warning. Mugs clattered, receipts spit out in sheets. The line bulged past the pastry case, like it did every Thursday. Wedged between a pharmacy and a laundromat in Eugene, Oregon, the cafe had no charm, but regulars didn't care. They showed up loud, hungry, and fast. Tasha Melrose, 29, knew the rhythm. Rain had soaked her shoes. Her apron still smelled like spilled iced tea. Her arms ached from 3 doubles back to back, but she kept moving. Booth 6 was missing fries. A to-go wrap waited, unclaimed. Under booth 3, twin toddlers shrieked like extras in a slasher flick. She kept her pace, stayed polite, didn't flinch when someone snapped at her for more ranch. At the drink station, Lily Barron, barely 17, looked wrecked, hands trembling, eyes shiny. Tasha leaned in. "You got this. Let 'em wait. Don't fall apart." From behind the counter, Clayton Renshaw observed like a warden, shirt too stiff, hair too perfect, arms locked across his chest. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. That stare did the work. "Melrose," he snapped, louder than the fryer. 12's still waiting for their check. "Sent it 10 minutes ago," she replied without stopping. "Then walk it to them. You don't just send things." She bit the inside of her cheek and nodded. She'd learned early. Silence lasted longer than arguments in this place. On her way to the kitchen, she noticed him. Near the door stood an older man, tall but fragile-looking. His coat was soaked, sleeves thinning at the elbows. One of his boots was untied. His hair was tangled, white as ash. And his eyes were cloudy, like the light behind them had dimmed. No one paid him any mind. Most were scrolling, slurping, or arguing over receipts. Clayton didn't notice, or didn't care. Tasha slipped an order into the window, then turned toward him. "Sir?" she said softly. "You all right?" He blinked, looked through her, then finally made eye contact. I was meeting someone, I think." His voice rasped like dry leaves. A chain around his neck held a worn, barely legible dog tag. On his jacket, an old military patch, the stitching nearly undone. "You want something to eat?" He hesitated, then nodded faintly. "Yeah, something hot." Tasha guided him to an empty booth, found a lost and found blanket and placed it over his shoulders. Back in the kitchen, she pulled a 10 from her pocket, slipped it in the drawer, and called to the cook. "Meatloaf, mashed, green beans, extra gravy." The cook didn't ask, just got to work. She served it herself, plate, cornbread, warm water. The old man stared at it like it was treasure, then at her. "Thank you, you didn't have to." "I did," she said. Then she turned, just as Clayton stepped out from behind the counter. And she knew. He'd seen everything. His words hung like fog. Tasha wasn't sure if he was speaking to her, or to ghosts. Maybe he was caught in memory. Maybe just tired. She untied her apron with calm hands and folded it in half. Then again. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not for Clayton. Louise stepped out from the kitchen, brows low. "That didn't sit right," he muttered. Clayton shot him a glance sharp enough to slice. "You looking to join her?" Louise looked over at Tasha, then shrugged. "Just saying." Tasha passed the veteran's booth. Her hand landed softly on his shoulder. "It's okay," she said. "Really." His eyes, misted and distant, rose to meet hers. "They'll come," he whispered. "They always do." She didn't understand what he meant. Outside, the rain picked up again, heavier now. Her hoodie clung to her arms as she stood near the bus stop. She held her apron with both hands like it was a lifeline. Back in the cafe, Clayton walked like he'd won a trophy. But something in the room had shifted. Customers whispered. A couple left without finishing their food. Lily wiped her cheeks with her sleeve. At the window booth, The old man chewed slowly, each bite cautious, as if food carried weight that memory couldn't swallow. No one expected what came next. Clayton tried to reset the scene, pacing, tidying, barking. He hated the feeling of losing control, hated being questioned more than anything else. And Tasha walking out without crying or yelling? That unsettled him most. He snapped at Lily when she fumbled a fork, rearranged napkins, watched the receipt printer like it might misbehave. The bluster in his voice was still there, but thinner now. A woman at the bar had her phone angled, screen red, recording silently from behind her coffee cup. "Louise," Clayton barked. "Scramble and hash for table 5. Nothing. He tapped the counter louder. "Louise, you deaf?" "I heard you," came the reply from the kitchen. Steady, cold. "Then move." The veteran still sat quietly. His hand shook each time he lifted the fork. Occasionally he'd freeze, just stare at the plate, like he forgot what it was. His coat had fallen open slightly. Sewn into the inside lining, a row of medals, frayed but unmistakable. Now people whispered for another reason. This wasn't just some lonely old man. He'd done something. He'd served. Clayton saw it too, but leaned harder into arrogance. "We're not a soup kitchen," he muttered under his breath. Then the bell rang, once, then again. 4 sharp footsteps entered. 4 figures in uniform stepped in, broad-shouldered, boots dark from the rain. One bore high-ranking stripes on his arm. None carried weapons. They didn't need to. They walked like men who didn't ask permission. Silence swept the cafe. Even the kitchen quieted. The first Marine scanned the room, eyes landing on the veteran. "Sir," he said, "we got your message." The veteran turned, his voice clear. "Didn't mean to cause trouble. She fed me, got fired for it." The Marine nodded. "We heard. We're here to make sure that doesn't go ignored." Clayton stepped forward, smile fake and practiced. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The second Marine studied him. "You run this place?" "I do. And I'd like if you didn't interfere with my staff or policies." The third Marine cut in. "From what we saw, your staff included a woman who gave her own money to feed a vet. That's not interference. That's principle." Clayton looked like someone had just slapped him. The silence didn't last long. A voice came from the corner table. Reggie Mathers, an Uber driver who usually kept to himself, always here before his morning shift. "I've been coming here since this place opened," he said, arms folded. "Never had an issue with the food, never had a problem with the people, except you." Clayton turned toward him, eyes twitching. "You don't lead with fear," Reggie continued. "You lead with how you treat people. Tasha did that. She was the leader in this place." Someone clapped, then another. It wasn't loud, it wasn't polished, but it was real. Clayton's grip was slipping. "This is my cafe," he snapped. "I make the rules." One of the Marines stepped in, voice lower now. "No one's saying you don't, but we are questioning how you use them. You had other options." "You could have pulled her aside, asked a question," the Marine continued. "Instead, you embarrassed her. Publicly." Clayton threw his arms up. "She gave away food. That costs money." "How much?" Jean asked from her seat near the window. $10? 12? He didn't answer. "How much do you think this'll cost once that video hits Facebook?" she said, nodding toward the woman still filming behind her latte. Clayton's jaw tensed, but he didn't speak. Louise came back out from the kitchen, towel slung over his shoulder. "You've been riding all of us like we should feel lucky just to be here," he said. "Tasha never did that. She stayed late, came in early, brought Lily lunch her first week. Didn't say a word about it," Lily added, her voice shaky. "She helped me fix my brakes, paid half. I didn't even ask." That did it. The weight of the room shifted. No longer neutral, no longer his. Clayton looked around, searching for control like it had just rolled under a table. "You all think she's a saint now? You think this makes you heroes?" Nobody answered. And that silence hit harder than any speech. The veteran at the booth folded his napkin with care. He reached for the Purple Heart resting on the plate. but a Marine placed a hand over his gently. "Leave it," he said softly. "It belongs here now." The old man nodded, then whispered, "Tell her thank you. My boys never forget." He stood, slow but upright, and followed the others toward the door. When it closed behind them, the cafe didn't feel the same. The light felt different, the air heavier. Clayton stared at the table, at the metal. Said nothing. But the story wasn't over. Outside, a black Suburban pulled up. No sirens, no flags, just presence. The rain had turned to a mist that barely kissed the windshield. The driver's door opened. Then the others. 4 men stepped out, calm, older, weathered. These weren't kids. These were Marines who had already seen war and returned from it. 2 black, 1 Latino, 1 white. Their boots were regulation, their uniforms clean but lived in. The man who stepped forward first wore sergeant stripes. His name patch read, Reuben Cole. Tasha watched from the bench. She didn't recognize the vehicle, but the way it moved, the way they moved, told her this wasn't casual. The bell over the cafe door rang again. Cole led them inside. Instant stillness. At the corner table, Reggie leaned in and whispered, "They ain't tourists." Behind the counter, Clayton froze mid-step. The sergeant walked straight to the booth, the half-eaten meal, the folded napkin, the purple heart still resting like a truth no one could deny. He turned. "Who fired the woman who gave that plate?" No one answered. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. 4 Marines stood motionless in Tasha's old workplace, holding the entire cafe in a silence even Clayton couldn't break. The kind of silence that didn't ask for respect. It commanded it. Tasha took a step back, unsure if she should go in at all. The door opened before she could decide. It wasn't another customer or a soldier. It was Lily. Her apron bunched in her hands, face blotched with fresh tears. "Tasha!" she gasped, rushing toward her. "Please! You need to come back inside." Tasha shook her head gently. "I'm not trying to make this worse." "You didn't make it worse," Lily said, voice trembling. "You're the only reason any of this makes sense." She took Tasha's wrist carefully, not forcing her, just grounding her. "Please." Inside, tension still crackled. Clayton stood near the register, arms crossed tight, jaw working overtime. He looked tough, but his darting eyes told a different story. The Marines hadn't moved. They didn't need to. When Tasha walked back in, a few customers clapped. It wasn't loud. It wasn't for show. It was quiet, respectful. The kind of applause you give someone who did something simple, but rare. Clayton's voice cracked. "I thought I made it clear you don't work here anymore." "I'm not here for the job," Tasha said. Her voice didn't shake. "I'm here because a man who served this country deserved something warm. And because I'm done pretending kindness needs clearance." Sergeant Cole turned to her. "Miss Melrose," he said, voice firm but sincere. "You deserved better. You shouldn't have been treated that way." Tasha nodded, the smallest thank you in her eyes. The tall Marine with the scar stepped forward. His gaze swept the cafe. "Some of you recorded this. Some of you just watched. But it needs to be said plainly." He looked directly at Clayton. "You don't punish someone for being decent." Clayton barked a laugh, dry, bitter. "She didn't cure cancer. She gave a guy meatloaf." "She handed out dignity," Cole replied. "That counts in our book." From the front of the cafe, a woman stood. Cheryl Miles, who ran the hair salon 2 doors down. Arms folded, eyes sharp. "I've seen the notes, Clayton. The veiled threats about cutting shifts. You didn't fire her for giving food. You fired her because she made people remember what empathy looks like." Clayton mumbled. "That's not true." "You've never even said good morning to me," Reggie said, his cold coffee untouched. "Been sitting in that booth for 2 years. You act like we owe you something." He shook his head. "You're the one who lost something today." Clayton stepped forward, hands on hips. "Oh, I see. You all want to make me the villain now? None of you pay the rent here. Louise leaned on the kitchen window. Number. But we keep the lights on. We clean the spills. We take your crap and smile through it. He looked at Tasha. And the one person who made this place feel human, you threw out. Clayton's voice spiked. This is mutiny. No, Cole said, stepping closer. This is accountability. At that moment, the bell rang again. Another man walked in, mid-50s, military haircut, wearing a navy jacket, a local contractor, the kind of person who didn't raise his voice unless it mattered. Name's Charles Fenner, he said. Heard what happened. He nodded to Tasha. If you're not working anywhere else, I'd be proud to offer you a job. Better pay, better hours, and a place where people respect the ones doing the real work. Tasha stared. Why? Because Walter Haggerty isn't just a veteran, he said. He's my uncle, and I trust him more than just about anyone walking this earth. You gave him more than a plate, Omar said, stepping toward her, uncertain but sincere. I'm not really good at this kind of stuff. But thanks. I was having a rough day, and you reminded me people still care. Tasha gave a quiet smile. Thank you, Omar. Lily approached next, nervously twisting the strap of her apron. I should have said something when he fired you. I should have stood up. You didn't owe me that, Tasha replied. But I appreciate hearing it now. Outside, a small crowd had gathered, some curious, others filming. Whatever happened inside wasn't staying inside. A woman with a press badge stepped in, speaking softly. Tasha Melrose? Mind if I ask what happened here? Clayton groaned from behind the counter. Are you kidding me? Reggie leaned back in his chair. Oh, it's serious now. But the bigger shift wasn't in the cafe. It came hours later, online. By late afternoon, Riverside Cafe's phones wouldn't stop ringing. But they weren't orders. They weren't locals. They were strangers. Some angry. Some just watching. The video, Cheryl's quiet footage, hit a local Facebook group first, then a military support page, then veteran Twitter. Within 5 hours, it was viral. Comment after comment poured in, that manager should be ashamed. She did more in one shift than most people do in a lifetime. I'd drive across state lines to eat wherever she works. Tasha didn't even know about the video until Lily sent her a link that night. She watched it from the couch in her tiny apartment, the same one where the windows fogged up in winter and the floor creaked near the bathroom. Her phone in hand, volume low, she saw herself, walking out, walking back in, speaking calmly. I'm tired of acting like kindness needs permission. She didn't remember saying it like that. But hearing it again, in her own voice, made something shift. She sounded different, stronger. Her inbox started pinging. A podcast host, a nonprofit in Salem, a few local reporters. But one email made her pause. Subject: Job opportunity. Stand with us. From Jordan Malik, Haggerty Veterans Outreach Center. Tasha's breath caught. She opened it slowly. Miss Melrose. I oversee operations at Haggerty Center here in Eugene. Walter is a dear friend of our founder and shared what happened. Then we saw it ourselves. We're hiring. Full-time. With benefits. We'd be honored to have you. She read it 3 times before calling the number. A man picked up on the second ring. Tasha. This is Jordan. Hope that offer didn't catch you off guard. It did, she admitted. But in a good way. Walter hasn't stopped talking about you. I didn't even know his name until today. He remembers the important things, Jordan said gently. Like you saw him when no one else did. They spoke for 20 minutes. He explained the role, helping clients, organizing meals, guiding people towards services. Mostly, he said, just showing up. She said yes before the call ended. The next morning, she dressed like it was her first day of school. Same bus, same street. But everything felt new. The Haggerty Center wasn't shiny, but it felt solid. Real. On the wall near the door was a photo. Her, standing inside Riverside, Marines behind her. Below it, written in thick black marker, "You don't punish people for being decent." Walter sat nearby, a paper cup in one hand, crossword untouched. "You made it," he said with a tired smile. She sat beside him. "I made it," she whispered. But while she moved forward, the cafe behind her was about to face its own storm. Another comment had said it plainly. "You lost the heart of your cafe the second you fired her." Meanwhile, at the Haggerty Veterans Outreach Center, things felt different, real, solid. Tasha had just helped a mother fill out housing paperwork. It wasn't glamorous, no camera crews, no interviews. But the work mattered. It filled her lungs with breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding in for years. In the break room, donated cinnamon rolls filled the air with warmth. Staff passed jokes around like coffee refills. Every now and then, someone would nudge Tasha and say, "Saw you on the news," like it was a secret code. But she didn't let it stick. She hadn't done it for attention. She'd done it to feel human again. That afternoon, a woman walked in, clutching her handbag like it might shield her from judgment. "I'm looking for Tasha," she said softly. Tasha came out, drying her hands on a napkin. "That's me. I'm Eileen March, Clayton's former business partner. I saw the video last night. I didn't know. I should have. That's on me." She looked down, ashamed. "I'm stepping away from Riverside. It's being appraised. I'm putting it up for sale." Tasha blinked. "That's a lot." "The town deserves better," Eileen said. "You deserved better." Before leaving, she handed Tasha an envelope. "From me. No strings attached." Tasha looked at it. "I didn't do it expecting anything." "I know," Eileen said. "That's why you deserve it." Tasha didn't open the envelope. She slipped it into her bag and went back to work. That evening, with the center closing and the lobby quiet, Tasha looked out over the parking lot, where sunlight died behind the trees. Walter Haggerty sat by the front window, blanket over his lap, staring like he was still waiting for something decades overdue. "You need anything before I lock up?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just thinking. Back in country. None of it mattered. Color, creed, nothing. Just whether someone had your back." Tasha leaned on the wall. "I used to wonder if I'd ever matter. I tried to be decent, work hard, but always felt one wrong move away from being disposable." Walter looked up. "People like you keep the world from falling over, quietly, no applause." That manager thought power was being in charge. He missed the point. Real respect is earned when you're not in the room. She smiled. "You should write that down." He chuckled. "I just lived long enough to see the difference." She hesitated. "Did you really call the Marines?" Walter shook his head. "Didn't have to. One checks in on me every Sunday." I told him what happened, that a good woman got fired for being kind. That was enough. As Tasha walked to the bus stop, the envelope still sat untouched in her bag. She thought of the rain that day, Walter's booth, and the moment she decided she didn't need permission to be decent. At home, she opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten note and a check for $5,000. "Thank you for showing the rest of us what integrity looks like," it read. "Build something better." She set it down and cried. Not for the money, but because, for once, doing the right thing hadn't ended in silence.